All right, so CNN is being called out for basically spreading fake news. They've actually stepped up and essentially admitted. But what happened was last week we even aired we were calling it possibly very fake. Clarissa Ward, CNN's correspondent, she's on the ground there in Syria. She does this whole episode where she's freeing a prisoner from a Syrian jail after the fall of Assad or the fall of Damascus. So this was on December 11th. They published this video report showcasing the moment that Ward and her team, along with the Syrian rebel fighter, found this man locked in a cell. And the man identified himself as Adel Garbal from Homs. He claimed that he had been detained for 3 months and was interrogated about his phone contacts. So he was acting like, yes, Assad put me in jail. And, I mean, who knows what he was claiming, but it kind of sounded like he wanted my phone contacts. His people wanted my phone contacts. And because I was some sort of like a dissident, a political prisoner or something. Clarissa Ward described this video and this moment of freeing this prisoner. And remember, she was on the video saying, oh, you're safe now. You're fine. You're okay. You're okay. Just really dramatic. This guy claiming that he hadn't even had food or water in 5 days. She described this as one of the most extraordinary moments of her entire journalism career. And it was all fake. But this was one of the extraordinary moments. A lot of people became, including us, extremely skeptical of this right out of the gate. I mean, this guy does not look like he's malnourished. He doesn't look like he hasn't had water in 5 days. He claimed that he looks really well kept. The cell wasn't filled with urine and feces. Clarissa didn't mention any sort of smell. They were kind of like, hello, is anybody there? Is anybody there? I mean, it just really looked completely and utterly staged. This guy claimed that he hadn't seen sunlight in months, except when he came outside. He was looking basically directly up at the sky, which is not something you're able to do physically if you haven't seen the sun in a really long time. So all of this looked really, really suspicious to a lot of people, including us here at the Kim Iverson Show. Well, a Syrian fact-checking organization named Verify Psy, which is an organization that fact-checks Syria stuff within Syria and about Syria. They later claimed that the rescued prisoner was not the man that he said he was, Adel Garbal, but his name was actually Salama Mohammed Salama, also known as Abu Hamza. And they say this guy is actually, he was a first lieutenant in the Syrian Air Force intelligence under Assad's regime. So he wasn't put in jail because he was some sort of political prisoner or a dissident, or, Assad was just treating his own people this way. I mean, I guess he was one of Assad's people. Essentially, he was the first lieutenant in the Syrian Air Force, but they jailed him apparently for corruption. That's what he was in jail for. This is the report that was put out by Verify Psy. Did CNN fabricate the story of freeing a Syrian detainee from a secret prison? And one of my criticisms of Clarissa Ward and CNN and this whole thing is they acted like, oh, look at us doing this good thing. We've opened up the prison and we're letting this man out. And my criticism was, you don't know what this man did. I mean, you're acting like you're freeing this man that was being persecuted by the atrocious Assad, who was just throwing people in jail because he just felt like it, just to torture people. But you actually don't know anything about this guy. You don't know what he did. He could have been a rapist. He could have been a mass murderer. Luckily, it didn't. Some people say he did kill people when he was in the Syrian army, that he was perhaps a torturer. Others who are citizens from the town that he's from say that he was known for harassment and bribery. So luckily, nothing as terrible as like rape or murders or things. But nonetheless, she knew nothing about this guy. And now it's come out, they really did know nothing about this guy. So here's the report. It says on December 12th, CNN published a video report on its website called CNN Reporter Documents a Shocking Moment of Finding a Prisoner Held in Secret Syrian Jail Unaware of Assad's Overthrow. In the footage, CNN's correspondent Clarissa Ward is seen accompanied by an armed individual as they open a cell in a Damascus prison. The report features a man named Adel Garbal from Homs, who claimed he was arrested 3 months earlier for having his phone searched and was taken to Damascus. Okay. The man, hidden under a blanket despite the gunshots used to break his cell lock. That was also what was really weird about the video, was that the cell was locked with a padlock, and the people with Clarissa Ward actually shot the padlock off of the door. if you're a prisoner being held in a cell, first of all, this is why it looks so fake. This guy heard the voices coming down the hall. He hears that they're not, they're speaking English. They're not speaking Arabic. He hears that they're foreign. He hears the gun shoot the lock off, and he still doesn't come out from under the covers. He's still hiding in the jail cell like he wants to stay there. I mean, the whole thing was just so completely staged. So CNN's only admitting to half of this, by the way. They really should admit to the whole thing being staged because it was so clearly staged, but they're only admitting to, okay, fine, this guy isn't who we claim this guy was. So the Verify side goes on to say, the team searched public records for the name Adel Garble to verify the circumstances and duration of his detention, but found no results. Garble, who claimed to hail from Homs and whose dialect supported this claim, prompted further inquiries in the city. The team discovered that his real name is Salama Mohammed Salama, a revelation that brought shocking details to light. Salama, known as Abu Hamza, is a first lieutenant in the Syrian Air Force intelligence, notorious for his activities in Homs. Residents of the Al-Bayada neighborhood identified him as frequently stationed at a checkpoint in the area's western entrance, infamous for its abuses. Abu Hamza reportedly managed several security checkpoints in Homs and was involved in theft, extortion, and coercing residents into becoming informants. According to locals, his recent incarceration, lasting less than a month, so not 3 months, less than a month, was due to a dispute over profit sharing from extorted funds with a higher ranking officer. This led to his detention in one of Damascus's cells, as per neighborhood sources. Now, one thing that we're finding out about the fall of Damascus, one of the reasons why everything just kind of very similar to Afghanistan, where the Taliban was just kind of able to roll into towns and the fighters just kind of put down their guns and swapped off their uniforms and just said, all right, you can have it. We're done here. Very similar reasons. The soldiers, the Syrian military, the interviews that they've done with various people have said that they just felt underpaid. A lot of people were easily bribed. So there was a lot of corruption in the military. That makes sense. When you're in a state of civil war for a long time, a lot of things, it's really difficult to maintain law and order, and people start to get into survival mode. And that tends to kind of bring out the corruption in the average person. They're willing to just kind of do whatever it takes to survive and whatever's best for their family. So there was a lot of corruption in the Syrian military. A lot of people ended up not serving. There was one guy that was actually interviewed, and he said that he was supposed to be in like a group of 11 or 12 soldiers, but there was only 3 of them, and one of them was so mentally unstable they couldn't give him a gun. So there's really only 2 of them, and there should have been 12. And he said when the rebel forces, when Al-Qaeda essentially came rolling in, they were told to fight, to like stand your ground, and they were like looking at each other like, no, we're not going to stand our ground. And they took off their uniforms, turned their phones onto airplane mode, and walked away. And that seems to be the story that happened with so many of the soldiers in Syria. They just felt like this isn't worth fighting. There's just too much corruption. Too many people aren't really here to support us. There's no real desire or will to fight. And that's essentially what happened. And this story kind of backs it up. I mean, here's a first lieutenant in Assad's Air Force, and he was essentially really corrupt, and he was jailed because he was dealing with extortion from another higher ranking officer. So there was a lot of corruption. They said despite his seemingly innocent and composed demeanor in the CNN report, Salama has a grim history. He participated in military operations on several fronts and Homs in 2014, killed civilians, was responsible for detaining and torturing numerous young men in the city without cause or on fabricated charges. Many were targeted simply for refusing to pay bribes, rejecting cooperation, or even for arbitrary reasons like their appearance. These details were corroborated by families of victims and former detainees who spoke with Verify Psy. Okay, so they also say that in addition to his violent past, residents testified that Abu Hamza has been attempting to garner sympathy since the fall of the regime, claiming he was forced into committing his crimes. The Verify Psy team also learned that he deactivated his social media accounts and changed his phone number, presumably to erase evidence of his involvement in armed activities and war crimes. So they also they used this photograph of him sitting behind his desk, as this is him in his full military uniform, sitting behind the desk. And they were able to match his face with the face of the guy in the video. And it's pretty much 100% certain that this is the guy. So CNN then comes out and says, oh, shoot, you caught us. Damn that Verify Psy organization for existing and actually doing real journalism when CNN was out there staging fake stories. And CNN puts out this saying, freed prisoner who said he was a victim of the Assad regime was an intelligence officer. A man who was filmed by CNN being released by rebels from Damascus jail was a former intelligence officer with the deposed Syrian regime, according to local residents, and not an ordinary citizen who had been imprisoned as he had claimed, and as we failed to fact check before running this story. CNN initially found the man while pursuing leads on the missing U.S. journalist Austin Tice. In a video report, Chief International Correspondent Clarissa Ward and her team, accompanied by a rebel guard, came across a cell at a Damascus jail that was padlocked from the outside. The guard blew off the lock with a gun, and the man was found alone inside the cell under a blanket. Starved, cold, scared. No, he was none of those things. When he emerged into the open air, the man appeared bewildered. Questioned by the rebel fighter who freed him, the man identified himself as Adel Garbel from the central Syrian city of Homs. And then they go on to say, well, turns out Verify Sci did some fact checking, and they found out that this guy was actually Salama Muhammad Salama. And we were able to actually take a photograph of Salama Muhammad Salama behind a desk, sitting in a military. We were able to run the facial recognition, and sure enough, yeah, it was the same guy. Boo. They said that rebel guards have now handed him over to the Syrian Red Crescent. The medical relief organization later posted a picture of him on social media saying that they had returned him to his relatives in Damascus. So what's interesting about this, besides the fact that CNN shared fake news and a fake story, and Clarissa Ward should be, honestly, this is not the first time that she's done something like this. So this is the type of stuff that, she should be somehow sanctioned as a journalist for, but then again, this is the type of stuff CNN wants. They're looking for sensational news. They're trying to show this fall of Assad, and now people are free and liberated, and they're trying to shape this story. And they shape this story using this fake guy in a fake prison with fake, feigning, wow, I'm out and I can see the sun and I haven't had water in days. And Clarissa Ward, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. Like just this whole thing. I mean, this is why people don't trust the mainstream news anymore. Because how can you, when you're not telling us the complete story of what has really happened in Syria? You're not telling us that these rebels are actually al-Qaeda, that the guy who's now the de facto leader of Syria has literally been killing U.S. soldiers in war in Iraq, which the American people should have a right to know about. Now, most of us believe that the war in Iraq was a big mistake. We shouldn't have been there. But nonetheless, the leader who is now in charge of Syria, essentially, was killing American soldiers. Americans should have the right to know that so that we could decide whether or not we want to champion this guy as somehow like he's the new guy that we really love, and he's going to bring in freedom and liberty and democracy to Syria. We all know that's not going to happen. This guy was chopping off heads not that long ago, but he's reformed, he says. He's changed his ways. That was just a phase. Well, if that's the case, why don't we just let out everybody from prison and just say, well, it was a phase. I'm sure you were just going through a phase when you were raping all those women. I'm sure you were just going through a phase when you were molesting all those children. I'm sure you were just going through a phase when you were, massacring people, slaughtering people all across the city as a serial killer. I'm sure it was just a phase. You're over that now, right? Right? So let's just open up the doors and let you out of the prison. The fact, so for one, this shows that CNN is fake news. That's not really a big surprise. But the other thing that this shows is what happens when a country has this sort of regime change, and why this regime change doesn't really result in anything positive. Everybody's now out of jail, even if they didn't deserve to be out of jail. They had no idea who this guy was or what atrocities he had committed, yet they let him out of jail and acted like they had liberated somebody. Imagine people coming to our country, opening up all of our jails and saying, oh, you're free now from the tyranny of all of those bad American cops. Let's just go ahead and defund the police. And now you're free. You're totally free. Go out there. And I'm sure you're a really good person. And whatever bad thing you did, it was just a phase. This is why Syria is going to have some serious, serious growing pains. One, they're in the hands of al-Qaeda. Two, they've now let out all the prisoners. And so it doesn't matter. Everybody who committed any sort of crime is now free and clear. It was a get out of free jail card when Assad had to flee. So the fall of Damascus or whatever, I don't know if Assad had to flee or whatever happened there, however you want to characterize it. This is why Syria is in deep, deep caca for a long time, I would say. Not only that, but they're being bombed to oblivion. There's just so much that's going on in Syria. The holidays are here, which also means it's sick season. Sinus infections, strep throat, upper respiratory hacking. Everyone is traveling and passing it all around. But guess what? You don't have to deal with it this year, folks. Why? Because this little blue case is your mobile urgent care. It has ivermectin, Z-Pak, amoxicillin, and 6 other prescription medications at your fingertips. Thanks to the wellness company's medical emergency kit, you can tackle anything severe your body comes across without ruining your holiday plans and winding up in urgent care. This kit cuts through the red tape by allowing you to take control of your health versus being reactive and inconvenienced during precious family time. So you don't need a gatekeeper because their medical board created a guidebook that outlines common treatments for UTIs, strep throat, bacterial infections, respiratory illnesses, and more. All it takes is filling out a digital intake form and your kit arrives at your door in 1 to 2 weeks. Travel with peace of mind this holiday season. Order your kit now by heading to twc.health/Kim. Use code Kim to save up to $45 off plus free shipping. It's for USA residents only.